online wallet GCash says it was not hacked following complaints of unauthorized transfers from users.
One tech expert believes that the mobile wallet may not be held liable as this was a case of individual hacking.
Nangyayari itong ganito pag yung mga user nagiging biktima ng phishing. So ibig sabihin nag-input sila ng account, nag-input sila ng credentials nila sa mga fake na websites at fake na mga app. So kaya nananakaw yung data natin. So pwedeng nabigay nila yung account nila sa mga kaibigan nila. So maraming possibility.
Naalarma ang ilang user matapos mahack ang kanilang messaging apps tulad na lamang ng Telegram at WhatsApp.
Yung mga numbers na yon ang magiging target nila ngayon sa mga scam, mga spam, saka mga kung ano-anong panluloko nila.
A cybersecurity company says the Philippines is second on the global cyber attack list last year. Despite this, the Department of Information and Communications Technology says we are steadily on our way to much improved cybersecurity. What infrastructures are in place and what safeguards are still needed in the country's digital transformation? We will discuss in this episode of the Chiefs. Welcome to the Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay. Kasama po natin ngayon dito sa Mandaluyong in our studio sa aming pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief po ng Philippine Star. Ami, good evening.
Good evening.
Mukhang tayong dalawa lang muna ngayon.
Oo nga eh. Oo nga.
Ano bang balita natin?
Kumustahin ko yung GCash mo. Naapektuhan ka ba?
Ako hindi. But meron ako nakikita sa mga social media, other people who have been posting about, but sinuwerte, I think sinuwerte naman ako, hindi ako affected.
Yung iba, nadagdagan daw ng piso. Pwede na rin, di ba?
Pero yun yung mga masalimuot na ano, di ba? Yes. Tapos, I think, separate pa dito, people, napapansin ko lang social media, people are also posting. Naiirita yung iba because now they're getting a lot of these messages, mga phishing messages, sa mga messaging apps.
Yun na nga eh. Meron nga dito, meron tayong isang kasama dito, pati daw banks. Well, people posing as banks na nanghihingi ng mga numbers mo, kahit lang daw 4. The last 4 of your credit card. Pwede daw na ma-hack yung account mo.
Ito na yung, actually, yung mga messages hindi naman kaiba dun sa mga natatanggap natin dati sa SMS.
Yes.
So, which makes you think, baka naman konektado ito sa SIM registration dahil hindi ka na pwedeng makapag-spam through text. And people were predicting this. Baka lang mag-shift yung scam sa mga online messaging apps.
They're always staying one step ahead of well, yung effort to control hacking, to stop hacking.
Anyway, yung mga bagay na ganyan na pag-uusapan natin, we will be speaking with DICT Secretary Ivan Uy. Don't miss that conversation. The Chiefs will be right back. As promised, we have Department of Information and Communications Technology Secretary Ivan Uy. Good evening, Secretary Uy. Welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Secretary.
Good evening, Ami. Good evening, Robbie.
Sir, let me start with this. I mean, something we led on. The Philippines supposedly ranked second in the global cyber attack list last year. What exactly does that mean? What does that list actually stand for? And what are we doing about this?
Well, when you say cyber attack, it can be many modes, no? So it could be, for instance, probing of vulnerabilities in our ICT systems, or it could be fraud, fraudulent transactions or fraudulent scams that is victimizing our general public. So marami po, no? What we've identified the most are actually the online scams that we've been monitoring for the past few months, no?
Hey, speaking of online scams, first, just to clarify, itong attacks, it applies to everything digital across all platforms, whether public or private?
Opo. depende po. Both government as well as private um, infrastructure, cyber infrastructure, are constantly being probed and being searched, no, for vulnerabilities. But if you say these are attacks, but whether the attacks are successful or not is a different story po.
Ah,
So,
sige.
for instance, this one, although there are many that have attempted, but most of them are actually detected, and the systems are able to redirect them or to repel them.
Okay, tamang-tama po itong usapan na to, as I imagine a lot of our viewers are watching. Because part of the attacks that people feel at the level of our citizens really is a number of things. I don't know if you necessarily bundle this as the same kinds of attacks or in the same category, but let's just take the examples of our digital wallets being attacked. A lot of people complaining about what happened with GCash. And then on the other side, parang napapansin ng mga tao, ba parang nasa WhatsApp, parang nasa mga messaging app ko ngayon yung mga phishing scam. Are these of the same category, but more generally, what do these reports signal to us?
Well, we have to make a distinction between phishing and actual hacking, no? Phishing is using social engineering in order to steal the credentials of the users, while hacking is actually penetrating or destroying the cybersecurity platform in order to enter or to exploit the vulnerability of a computer system. My analogy there between hacking and phishing is like you have a bank. If you have a bank and you have a vault, you have security cameras and you have alarm systems. In hacking, what the thief does is they forcibly penetrate or enter the bank by using an acetylene torch or a jackhammer to destroy the walls or to disable the cameras in order to enter into the bank and steal the money. While phishing is they fool the bank manager into giving to them the combination of the safe, and so the thief is able to get into the safe using the credentials or the combination of the bank manager and is able to steal the money inside. So that is phishing po. So
Well-
there's two different types of cyber fraud or cyber attacks.
Ayun na nga, nabanggit nyo na rin lang, Secretary, sa layman pati mga low-tech na pareho ko, pare-pareho lang yung cyber attack. Are you actually confirming na second nga tayo in the world in terms of cyber attacks?
That is based on some surveys, no? But kung sa tutuusin po, ang mga successful na mga cyber attacks, I think ang pinakamalaki po are being done now in Europe, like Ukraine and or Korea, South Korea or Taiwan, where we are seeing a large numbers of actually cyber attacks that are successful. When we say cyber attacks, it's not literally attacks po. It's more probing and trying to see if there are weaknesses in the system.
What about in terms of capability compared to other countries? Anong masasabi niyong ranking natin? Medyo mababa ba tayo o mataas naman yung ating batting average for foiling these attempts?
In Asia po, we are actually average in our capability. But that is not satisfactory as far as I'm concerned. We need to elevate our cybersecurity posture into a much higher category. Kulang po tayo ng ng support in terms of cybersecurity at kulang po tayo ng mga highly skilled cybersecurity professionals. We have a very low number on that po. So we need to build up our skills, our capacity, and the support that we need. Just an example for 2023, yung cybersecurity budget po ng DICT for capital expenditure for cybersecurity ay 0 po.
Zero.
Wow.
Pero nanghingi po
Zero.
ba kayo?
Ah.
Did you ask for a
Opo.
budget?
Opo.
Ano po yung hiningi ninyo?
Cybersecurity capital outlay.
And
So we
how
can
much?
buy more cybersecurity equipment, more cybersecurity software, as well as training for cybersecurity.
Yeah, but you mentioned both, diba? Parang hindi lang CAPEX, pati OPEX. You're saying basically this is not just a matter of money, it's also a matter of training and having more manpower, literally more human resource behind this.
Opo. At one of the challenges we have po, especially in government, is cybersecurity professionals are highly paid. And we are constrained by the salary standardization law to only pay them a minuscule amount for a very highly valuable skill set. So ang mangyayari po, it's we cannot afford them, and the private sector is the one that are able to hire these cybersecurity professionals. So what we would end up needing is to hire those companies, cybersecurity companies, and in order for them to help secure our infrastructure.
Okay, but we'll get into that a little bit more later. But I'm just curious about the nature of the attacks. I mean, taking aside phishing, scamming, those targeting citizens for scams and so on, but just isolating it just on matters pertaining, let's say, broadly to national security, the probings of public sites in particular that you mentioned. Can we tell where the attacks are coming from?
That's the uniqueness, if you want to call that, of cyber attacks po, no? Is the attribution. There's always a problem in terms of attribution, because what you can see when you see the links may not necessarily be where the origin of the attacks are, because it can be masked through different countries. And that's also the problem with currently when we see cyber attacks or cyber warfare in other countries. Very difficult. This is a very gray area, and attribution is always an issue. And you don't want to retaliate and attack where it is apparently coming from, when in fact it is probably just being redirected to that country.
Yes, but what are other contexts that we can look at? For example, can we say, for example, in terms of time period, in terms of timelines, when we started noticing a particular spike in the probings and in the attacks?
Oh, it's been ongoing po for actually many years already, and so it's normally it normally happens. It's not just for individual cyber criminals, no, but very often there are, for instance, state-sponsored threat actors. There are also organized crime threat actors. These are organized criminal syndicates that hire very able, highly paid cyber mercenaries in order to exploit vulnerabilities in different systems for profit or for gain.
I ask, of course, and this is just to be transparent and explicit about it. I ask because over the past weeks and months and years, frankly, we have spoken with cyber experts. You did use the phrase cyber warfare. And one of the things that people did remind us and say is that as we look at issues, for example, with China, that as the whole of society asks questions about what might be triggers for war and so on, they're saying that warfare might come in non-traditional forms, including cyber warfare. Is this a context that we are looking at?
Definitely, Robbie. In fact, I would think that the Third World War will most likely not even be a traditional war. It will be a cyber war. where attacks against nation states will be conducted on the cyberspace and not on the physical realm. First, because it can create as much economic damage as maybe a traditional war, but it has the advantage of being anonymous and being very difficult to trace as to where the source of the attacks are. So this is the gray area or gray zone where attacks can actually be done with impunity, and the retaliation will be also conducted probably in that gray zone area.
So babalikan ko nga, Secretary, yung capability natin, our weaponry. So by way of funding and other resources, how much were you asking Congress at ano yung hinihingi ninyo specifically?
Well, we need to develop our cybersecurity infrastructure as well as the tools that we need, no, to properly defend our critical infrastructure, our digital infrastructure, and they cover many sectors. Po, no, you're talking, let's say, sectoral, like energy, transportation, communications, finance, and so on. So all of this have to be properly addressed. With respect to the private sector, they are actually investing a lot in terms of developing their cybersecurity capability, and we are coordinating with all of them in order to ensure that we have the proper, we adhere to the proper international standards that will be required in order to secure our critical assets. Po.
So magkano nga yung hiningi nyo sa Congress? Because you told us na hindi kayo binigyan ng funding. How much were you asking for?
I'll have to check ko, but definitely it will be a few billion pesos po. But the entire budget of the ICT is only, I think, about 10 billion.
Ano ba yung entry level nung ano, yung you said you need experts, you need the skills to fight the cyber attacks. Ano ba yung entry level pay natin and compared to the private sector? Ano ba yun?
For instance, a CISSP professional, which is one of the professional standards for cybersecurity, their pay is around mga 300 to 500,000 per month po.
Wow.
At dito po sa atin, I think we're only paying about 100 to 120,000 at most.
And how many people might you need? Kung yung minimum lang, minimum requirement for the government.
For the government, we need cybersecurity professionals in every agency of the government because they are ultimately responsible, no, for parang data privacy officer po natin.
Yes.
Each government agency also has one, so there should also be a cybersecurity officer in each of the government agencies to ensure that the cybersecurity assets of that agency is protected. Then the ICT will help coordinate all of these professionals and ensure that they are properly trained, that they are aware of what are the current and anticipated threats, who are the potential cyber threat actors that are out there. We have extensive coordination with cybersecurity companies all over the world, as well as cybersecurity agencies like in the US, Singapore, ASEAN, among our ASEAN countries, and even European allies, as well as countries like Japan and Korea. So this kind of exchange of information is very important to identify early on what are the trends and what are the exploits that the cyber criminals or cyber threat actors have identified or are taken advantage of. Then we alert all our cybersecurity network to be to watch out for those vulnerabilities.
Still on the costs for this minimum that each department, as you said, will need. Nabanggit nyo rin po, babangga yan sa salary standardization law. Yung mga binanggit nyo na presyo, I imagine that's still just on the private sector side. If we were to build this into the plantilla of, let's say, departments, what's the maximum salary grade at this point for a position like that?
In the salary standardization law po.
Yes.
Currently, nandyan lang po, no? Mga nasa salary grade 25 siguro or up to maybe 28.
Which would be equivalent to?
So, mga 150, 120, 150, mga nandyan dyan po per month.
In the meantime po, I think you've laid down maybe the urgency for this. But in the meantime, na kulang tayo, both on the CAPEX and the OPEX, what can we do in the meantime?
Well, for now, what we've done is we're relying on the private sector for help in ensuring that those critical infrastructures that are currently under their watch, for instance, the energy sector or the financial sector, nag-invest po naman mga bangko sa mga cybersecurity infrastructure nila. And we just coordinate with them to ensure that those systems are properly protected and that they comply with the international standards that are required in cybersecurity. Mga ISO standards po yan. At we continually do training with the help of the cybersecurity providers po. Hindi po naman nagkukulang yung mga providers ng cybersecurity kahit na wala kaming binibiling mga equipment sa kanila, in anticipation siguro, and tumutulong rin sila na i-train ng ating mga professionals in upgrading their skill sets.
Okay. We are speaking with DICT Secretary Ivan Uy. And Secretary, we'd appreciate if you hang on and ituloy natin. We still have a few more questions and we'd appreciate if you'll stay with us as we continue this discussion after a break. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back. Still with us is DICT Secretary Ivan Uy. Secretary, apart from the smishing, phishing, cyber hacking, may inaalala na naman ng mga tao ngayon, artificial intelligence. Sabi nila lalo daw madadali yung mga fraud online at saka yung mga panggugulo sa mga cellphone natin at mga email account. What can you say about this?
Well, totoo po yun, no? Artificial intelligence will actually probably become mainstream in the near future. At although maaring, as with any technology po, maaring gamitin for good at maaring gamitin for bad. So although probably, let's say, the cyber criminals can use AI in order to exploit whatever vulnerabilities, we can also use AI in order to learn their patterns and their behavior and improve also our cybersecurity posture using AI.
At saka meron din siyang uses for, of course, for the economy, no? Ano ba yung mga benign uses niya na the masses can apply?
Well, for one po, it is machine learning, no? So we can use the machine to learn, for instance, analyze, let's say, yung mga weather patterns and to do predictive analysis kung saan likely na magkakaroon ng landslide or ng flooding sa mga areas or predict storm surges. So in terms of disaster resiliency, in terms of maybe sa online education, it will help in the learning of people by being able to access data or information in a more intelligent and organized manner, and collate them so that the materials can be given to the learners in a organized, easy learning way. Or it can be used for e-health or telemedicine in analyzing better yung mga diagnostic tools so that it can provide a better picture of the nature of the ailment na maaring kulang po sa physical access ng ng doktor sa mga some of the areas, maaring yung AI po ang mag-analyze ng mga laboratory results at magbigay ng prognosis kung ano yung sakit at possible na gamot.
Gaya nga po ng sabi nyo, as with any technology, may pros, may cons, may benefits, may risk. In fact, we know that you recently spoke at a conference or a summit precisely to talk about AI. We imagine maraming private sector doon, meron ding public sector, different departments. Given all the possible applications and benefits that you mentioned, what's a fair way to say where you personally stand on it right now and how you frame this for public officials asking? Saan po ba kayo tumitimbang in encouraging the adoption of AI or being more careful about it?
Well, AI will be here, and in fact, we're already seeing many applications. For instance, what is the most viral now is what we call the Chat GPT, which is actually a learning platform that learns languages and collects data from a large amount of data source to give you a good report, kumbaga, or information. At nakikita nyo nila na, for instance, ginamit yung ChatGPT to take the bar examinations at mukhang mataas yung score nung artificial intelligence na yan. So it's here to stay, and it's going to just be more pervasive as technology goes on. So we need to prepare our people, we need to prepare our government, we need to prepare our private sector that with the advent of AI, there will be changes, significant changes in the way we do things, and we need to adapt to those changes. Otherwise, baka maging obsolete ang certain jobs or certain industries dahil it will be replaced by AI.
What then is our stance? And I'm wondering how you now coordinate as well and give your insights with our economic departments, our economic planners and teams. We know there has been a lot of discussion precisely about how this would impact, for example, the BPO sector, which is such an important pillar for our economy. Ano po ang discussions natin on that front?
We have several discussions, but mostly AI is still being discussed on the technology sector. I think that the conversations on the economic sector has not really been that pervasive yet as of now. But we predict that it will extend to more sectors. No, it's actually at the we're just starting to see AI being commercialized in some areas, and the jury's still out as to how it will affect certain jobs or certain industries. And so we're still on the observation stage and study stage on where the impacts will be, which agencies or industries, services, and jobs will actually be impacted by AI.
But let me just clarify if I got that correctly. You say that we are at the observation stage, but you also said na on a certain level, hindi pa to na, there has been no conversation yet. I mean, is that an accurate way of phrasing it, that there is no, for example, no deliberate high-level discussion on the level of government? There is no task force looking at this at the highest levels to discuss what the fallout will be, or the implications, not necessarily just fallout, but even positive implications or positive possibilities. But it's not actually a formal, high-level conversation right now for government.
And the high level will be on the technology sector po.
Yes,
Because,
not on the economic
it-
front, not on the economic front.
Not yet, not yet. And that's why Senator Amy Marcos has actually made a proposal for a more thorough study. Her thrust has been that how will AI now affect our BPO sector, especially the call center sector, and will it result in more jobs or less jobs, or do we need to retool or reskill our voice sector in the BPO industry into other skill sets in anticipation of AI? So that's one of the initiatives that our legislators are pushing currently in studying artificial intelligence.
Well, apart from concerns about AI, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po yung mga agam-agam about SIM registration. Kumusta na yon? Naka 70% naman lang ba tayo?
Actually, when we speak of percentage po kasi, it's a percentage of SIMs that are legitimate SIMs, meaning SIMs that are being really used by
Yes.
people to make calls and to do text. Marami ko kasi mga active SIMs that are not legit, no? These are used by scammers, these are used by telemarketing people in order to scam or to defraud. And karamihan ng mga SIM cards na ito single use. Kumbaga inactivate nila at ginamit na isang beses at hindi dini-activate. So basically hindi na ako ginagamit 'yon, but base sa datos ng telcos active pa rin sila kahit na hindi na ginagamit. So
Yeah.
if we're looking at
Active.
legitimate SIM users, mga nasa 100 to 110 million siguro yan.
Okay.
Okay.
Instead of 168 million. And so we already, I think, surpassed 90 million SIM card registration.
Yun namang you are partnering with the Land Transportation Office for digital driver's license. Can you tell us more about it? Ano ba yun exactly? Kasi nag-aalala na naman mga tao. Baka daw kung ano-ano na naman makakuha diyang data as a result.
Itong sa LTO po, biglaan po ito, no? Dahil medyo nagkagulo po nung naubusan ng plastic cards
Yes.
for the ID. At medyo masama po ang reaction ng public nung inilabas na print out na lang sa isang papel at ipapalaminate na lang yung papel.
Yes.
At yun po ang driver's license. Kahiya-hiya po yun. So, lumapit po ang LTO at kinausap ang DICT. May paraan pa na matulungan sila upang mabigyan ng at least some form of digital driver's license na maaari magamit in lieu of the printout na ilalaminate ng public. So we hurriedly, since we are already developing a digital platform for identification, for eKYC, kumbaga inampon na namin yung driver's license to deploy a digital format of the driver's license in the meantime.
In the
But ayun nga
meantime,
po yung tanong ko, in the meantime,
kailangan
parang
pa yung
stopgap
plastic.
lang po ba to? Or, I mean, it's already digital, it's
Yeah.
already there. Stopgap lang po
No.
ba to? Or ito na talaga yung direction? Is this really the future anyway?
This is the future po. But the features will not be available until sometime down the line. So for instance po, once you have a digital ID, digital driver's license, it will have to be connected to, let's say, the single ticketing system for traffic violations. So, yung feature na yan, wala pa ho yan dahil that will require extensive software development and systems analysis and design in order to ensure compatibility of data, interoperability of systems. So, it's a very complicated process, but eventually it should connect to the single ticketing so that when law enforcers scan the digital driver's license, they will be able to see whether this driver has outstanding violations that have not been paid, or when they now will issue a ticket, it will now also be connected to the digital driver's license and connect to the LTO as well as to the digital
Yeah.
payment system for the fines.
But
So that will have to be an interconnected ecosystem po.
yeah, but Secretary, tama po ba yung pagkakaintindi ko that's actually it's on a totally different level, di ba? Parang right now for
Yeah.
a lot of people with a driver's license, whether plastic or virtual, ang first most basic kailangan nila doon is it's an identification. Pag tinigil ako ng police or ng MMDA, pwede natin pagkatiwalaan yan on an identification level. Di ba? It's valid enough.
Opo.
Opo.
Opo, that's why. So
But
in
I
terms of
asked
authenticity,
because the interoperability and the ability to then have a unified system on the back end is a separate issue, di ba? Kasi kahit naman naka-plastic yan, we're still gonna run up with the same issue. Di ba? Yung mga plastic na driver's license ngayon still does not lead to a unified back end. Hindi po ba?
exactly. That's why the thrust really is to go digital. And so with a digital identity system, whether it's an LTO, driver's license, or a ID for your pag-ibig, your SSS, GSIS, PhilHealth, and so on, all of those will have to be integrated in a single platform, no? A digital ID that will interconnect all of them. And then it will now have to interconnect into an ecosystem that will synergize all the different segmented databases that are operating in silos in all the different government agencies. So, kumbaga single sign-on na lang po. Once a citizen transacts with government, it will not be transacting with 20 government agencies. It will only be transacting with one government.
So when you speak of down the line, ano po yung timeline na target nyo dyan?
It's ongoing po. So we're looking at probably end of the year to next year. And it will only be linking agencies that are ready to be linked as we go forward.
At kakailanganin pa rin yung plastic driver's license cards.
That will only be as a secondary ano na lang ho. It will probably be for those who feel more comfortable holding on to a plastic license or to something physical, or to people who do not have access to a smartphone where a digital ID can be deployed.
But right now po, if it's expressed ultimately either as a barcode or a QR code, kailangan pa ba talaga mag-print out ng mga tao? I mean, can I keep it on my phone? Total, doon din naman babagsak yun. Doon yung litrato ko, doon yung QR code, may barcode if necessary. Bakit kailangan pa rin ng printout?
Ultimately po, yes, you don't really need already a printout or a physical card. The digital ID will be on a mobile platform that will be interoperable and that can link with all the different government agencies that require identification.
Is that the future? I mean, I'm asking specifically about LTO driver's licenses because we see a lot of people printing it out and then laminating it, and so I guess that doesn't hurt. But the question is, if they have the digital file that they can print out, why can actually right now, as a matter of policy, is that already the policy na actually hindi nila kailangan mag-print out?
It should be, but again, uh, uh, the details of this digital driver's license are still being worked out between DICT and LTO, and we'll have to agree on how that system will ultimately be deployed. No, but ideally, there should no longer be a need to actual physically print out. But for instance, without the printout, our law enforcers will have to download, let's say, an app that will be able to read the digital ID, the digital driver's license, in order to verify whether that's a genuine license or if it's a valid license or not.
Okay.
Okay. DICT Secretary Ivan Uy. Sir, maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Okay,
Secretary.
Thank you, Robbie, and thank you, Ami. Ami, I think we have an event on the 25th
Yes.
with Star, with
Yes.
Philippine Star.
Opo. Thank you.
Oo. So
Salamat.
I'll see you there.
Salamat po, Secretary.
Thank you.
And that is it for the Chiefs. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ami Pamintuan.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.